Namaskar. Bhushans Academy of Performing Arts and Visual Presentation welcomes you all for today's Vishwa Nruthya Bhushana happening on the Facebook page Vishwa Nruthya Bhushana. Today, along with me, this is Anjana Bhushan joining me. Why? There is a reason. Because this today happens to be the 24th year celebrations of her Arangetram, and today our distinguished guest is Sri.Badari Divya Bhushana, that is Anjana's Guru. ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರೆ ಭೂಷನ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರದರ್ಶಕ ಕಲೆಗಳು ಮತ್ತು ದೃಶ್ಯ ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತಿ ಕೇಂದ್ರ ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಈ ದಿನದ ವಿಶ್ವ ನೃತ್ಯ ಗಾನ ಭೂಷಣ ಸರಣಿಕೆಗೆ ಸ್ವಾಗತಿಸುತ್ತೇವೆ. ಈ ದಿನ ನನ್ನೊಂದಿಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಧರ್ಮಪತ್ನಿ ಶ್ರೀಮತಿ ಅಂಜನಾ ನನ್ನೊಂದಿಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಂದು ಅವರ 24 ವಸಂತಗಳು ಸಂದಿವೆ. ಅರಂಗೇಟ್ರಂ ಅವರ ಈ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರಕ್ಕೆ ಕಾಲಿಟ್ಟು 24 ವಸಂತಗಳು ಸಂದಿವೆ. ಈ ದಿನದ ನಮ್ಮ ಅತಿಥಿ ಅವರ ಗುರುವಾದಂತಹ ಖ್ಯಾತ ನೃತ್ಯಾಂಗನೆ ಶ್ರೀಮತಿ ಪದ್ಮಿನಿ ರವಿ ಅವರನ್ನ ಈ ಒಂದು ವೇದಿಕೆಗೆ ಸ್ವಾಗತಿಸೋಣ. ನಮಸ್ಕಾರಂ.
Namaskaram. How are you both?
Wonderful. With immense pleasure and happiness, we welcome you to this series of Vishwa Nruthya Bhushana. I hope you're watching the series. And with
yes, I am watching, and thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to see you, Anjana.
I invite you on this particular day because today is 15th of September, and this was the day when 24 years ago Anjana had her Arangetram. So that was the reason why we wanted you to be blessing us with your divine presence and of course sharing your knowledge to all of us and all the viewers over here on this day.
I'm really honored. I actually consider myself experienced to be your student.
Thank you. And it was a pleasure teaching you as well. And you have completely married into the right family. And I'm so glad that both of you are pursuing this. Yeah.
Auntie, before I start anything, the first and obvious question many interviewers would have asked you, or many people you would have told before, that how did the journey start and from where did you commence? When did Padmini start to learn Bharatnatyam?
Mine is a very different story. In fact, I lost my father when I was a 9-year-old child. And I was the only child for my mother. And I was a very quiet child. So when my father died, it had affected me. I was all of 9 years old and it had affected me. And then I had become even more quiet. So my mother's friend suggested to my mother that I should join Sarasa because her daughter was also learning. And she said if she sees other children, she will start talking and, it'll be a diversion for me. And that's how I started dance, not with any grand idea of becoming a performer or a teacher. Because I come from a very conservative Iyengar family. And so my mother just said that, you can join this class so that you can be a little bit of distraction to my already quiet self. So that's how I started the journey.
Was it the only guru that you learned? Sarasama was the only teacher that you went to, or was it like, did you go to different gurus?
No, till 1978, till the time I moved to Bangalore, I was only learning with Sarasama teacher. And then after that, I started my class, and then she was coming here to teach in my school, and then she had done a couple of Arangetrams of my students. But then she also got very busy and she couldn't come that often to Bangalore. So I started going to Chennai. But she had always encouraged all of us to learn different things from different people. So I thought I first went to S.K. Rajaratnam Pillai just to understand the flavor of what other people are choreographing and what other people are doing. Then I went to Kittappa Pillai, I mean, these are after I started my class, but till such time that I was a performance as a teacher, I was my only teacher. And then when I started teaching and I wanted to give different flavors to my students, I said, okay, let me taste some other choreography. So I went to Rajaratnam Pillai, went to Kitapa Pillai, and I started learning Abhinaya from Kalanidhi Mami. I learned from her for about 16, 17 years. So that's how the journey began. Then I also learned from Savitri Jagannath Rao from Kalakshetra. So I just had a very, it was not intensive learning. I just wanted to experience their style. I wanted to experience an equation with them more than just learning items.
Was there any this question I keep asking more dancers who are married and then they pursue their career in a bigger way? Was Ravi uncle supportive? The family that you got into, were they keen on you dancing, or did they say like the traditional families how they have their own rules? Was there any kind of difficulty for you to convince them, or was it like with the kind of woman I know you as? I'm sure you would speak your mind and heart out, but then still, for the viewers' sake, I would want to know.
Actually, I was not somebody who was very aggressively ambitious about dance as long as I was in Chennai. Wherever teacher asked me to do, I just went and performed in all group performances. And I was never, if you consider in comparison to how the current generation is, I never went out and looked for performances and all that. And in a very strange way, I had a very, my teacher was a very celebrated artist who was in, very immersed in film world. There are a lot of film stars who was learning, and I was working with film choreographers because Hiralal's brother, Sohanlal's brother Hiralal was my teacher's neighbor. So I used to go, and he was very fond of me, and his son was Sarsa's student. So he used to come and learn Bharatnatyam, and then he will say, "Ma Padmini konjanga anupanga, I want to choreograph some film dances and all that." So all the exposure had started in the film field very early in my age. But I was on the one side, my mother and all of them come from Tiruvalikeni, Triplicane, Agraharam, so very, very conservative family. So there's a sharp contrast, between the film world and my teacher's glamorous life, and my mother who was, from dance class, I'll go straight to Triplicane temple and, do all the pujas and all that. So I was not very particularly, when in fact, I moved very happily from Chennai to Bangalore because my mother-in-law had said that I should not dance. And I readily accepted, and I moved to Bangalore. I got married in 79, and then I just didn't think about dance. I just used to go and see performances because at that time Lalita Srinivasan was in Malaysia. But now she's in Malaysia. So I used to go and see her dance and other performances. There was always a little bit of a twinge in my heart and saying, "Oh my God, I can't dance," but then I never missed it. Till 1980, I had my first child was a stillborn baby, and I was again totally depressed for the second time. And my husband said, "Okay." And then I was, after the childbirth, and I was all of 90 kilos, fat and round like a bird. And then Ravi said, "Okay, why can't you just start teaching? Because at least that will be a distraction." So second time in my life, I started teaching. I started my journey with dance as a distraction. First time was my father's death. Second time was my child's passing away. So that's how I started teaching. And I didn't perform because I was too fat at that point of time. And then slowly, and then from then, my relationship with my dance is sealed for this. So I continued teaching and then performing, and and then everything else.
Once you started dancing, was your attention more towards teaching, or you wanted to grow as a performer, or there was no conscious thought in this?
In fact, I didn't plan performing, but I remember Mr. BBK Shastri, once he told me, because I was already, I already had a lot of students and a lot of performances, because those days there were hardly anybody, just 5 or 6 schools in the whole of Bangalore. So we would be performing, but he always told me something which always stuck with me in my memory, and that is what actually made me start performing again. He said, however much you're a good teacher, people need to see you perform. So only when you perform, any child or the parent will aspire to be you, because they'll think at some point of time they will be like, want to be like you, perform like you. So you must start performing. And that was, I don't know, the first time SARC was happened in Bangalore. I think it was 1984, 83, 84, I'm not sure. And I was still very fat. He said, you must dance. So I remember, shedding that weight. It was dreadful. I took 2 years of exercise, diet and all that. And the first time I performed was at SARC, which I didn't remember at all. And so then it was, I just wanted to have a relationship with my dance. So I was teaching, and people wanted to see me perform. So, and I was performing. The point I'm trying to say is there was no agenda. I just went with the flow. If there was a performance, I used to perform. And the students, I used to perform with them. They used to perform. So there was no plan. There was no strategy. There was no marketing. There was no social media and brand building, nothing. It was a very conducive, very simple, innocent and joyful atmosphere where we all performed, and so there was no particular direction in which I wanted to do. It just happened, and I just went with the flow.
Through career, did you focus again bringing back the same question, similar probably, like many dancers would concentrate on productions, group productions, or probably margams, or probably solo thematic productions. What was your heart saying, and what did you do?
Which did you like the most, Andy? Group productions or solo performance?
I liked, see, the thing was, in group productions, everything was a different challenge. Group productions were putting together, and the visualization was completely different. And solo thematic productions, the visualization was totally different. I enjoyed both. But I just got tired of the group productions because it was too much work and too much coordination. And a few years into my class, because I was neck deep, I used to teach 12, 13 hours a day. And then after the classes, we used to have rehearsals day and nights, and, it was too much. So the group productions, I used to love group choreography, I should admit that. But it was too much of work. And with me, what happened was, every 5 years, 6 years, I used to get bored, very bored, because I'm a very creatively restless person. Not that I was bored with dance, I was bored with what I was doing with dance. So every 5 years, 6 years, I used to change my paradigm. So once I said, no, I don't want to dance. And then once I said, I am very bored with Bharatnatyam, so we did something with jazz and freestyle movement. Those days, we didn't even have the word contemporary dance, maybe Chandralekha, but then, I wanted to do something. And then at one point of time said, no, I don't want anything, I just want to do solo. So it was, as I said, I had no plan, I had no agenda, we had no, I don't know if it's good or bad, but that's how it was. And I just did whenever my heart said something at that point of time. I just followed it without even giving it a second thought. Even when I stopped teaching, I didn't give it a second thought, say, oh my God, I'm stopping teaching. What happens to my brand and what happens to my center? I just said, this is not for me now. I needed to refill my soul. So I said, I'm going to do different things. I'm not going to teach. And I remember sending all the students to Kiran and Sandhya. And, I said, just go wherever you are. My blessings are there with you. So I've always acted on impulse, and I'm totally a person from my heart. I don't think too much. Yeah, I mean, retrospect, I could have continued teaching, and I could have done whatever it is, but at an impulsive moment, whatever happens, I just do it. So I enjoyed all of it, because everything, whether it was a production, or whether it was a solo production, or whether it was a thematic, a margam or a thematic production, every experience gave me something different. And I believe dance is only experience, and with collective years of experience, I hope I have evolved as an artist. Yeah.
I actually remember, Auntie, because your schedule used to be so tight, 6 months you were here, then 6 months in the US. So I think that whole schedule used to be really.
Yeah, it was very tiring also, because what happens is, I like sweets, right? Nare chapta tehatam. It'll too many sweets. Just because I have a rasagulla, I love rasagullas, I can't have 25 of them. So dance became like that. I didn't have time to think, to feel it. I was just go like a machine, this class, that class, this animation, that production. And I just had it, and I just needed to step back and view myself with dance. I didn't stop dancing, or I didn't stop teaching. I just stopped being that person who was all the time on the go. I just needed to see myself and feel myself as a performer, as a teacher, how to improve and how to, move forward. So that was what it was. But those days were really, really hectic. And my travel, I used to travel 6 months in a year. And in fact, I stopped going for 10 years. I didn't go to the US because I just had it. It was like you teach there for 6 months and then you come back. I used to go to Europe, I used to go to US, I used to go to Canada. You come back and then you're completely dry, so you just need to refill your soul. So it was too much. So I said, I just stepped back completely. And then I think that's what made me realize my relationship and my in-depth relationship with my dance. I'm so glad that I took that break. I'm so glad that I took that break.
When you were experimenting, you said you stopped dancing or you didn't want to do this, you were not the real regular stereotypes, or rather, I should say, you're not were in the rat race or never in. So, were you anytime have to confront critics or probably the contemporaries, anywhere that the pressure or probably to deliver that? Was there any time you had to face the critics' pressure or critics' acclaim or whatever? Anything like that?
In fact, it never bothered me. Even when I was with Sarasa, in those 10, 15 years, I was one of the leading performers in Chennai. I didn't think one bit that, oh my God, how can I put in so many years of, I had created a name for myself. How can I leave this and go? Then when I came to Bangalore, I didn't, for me, there was never, ever was there a point where I wanted to please someone. Never. Whether it was my critics, whether it was my organizers, I used to say, and people didn't like most of the things that I did, including myself. I did some crazy stuff with some Sarvam Shivam, some Marichika, but I just did what at that point of time I wanted to do. There were a lot of, even now, I mean, on a lighter note, one of my students came and said, Madam, Nodi, or Heludru, Padmini Ravi, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಡಾನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು, ಈಗ ನೋಡಿ ಹೆಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಫಿಲ್ಮಿ ತರ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಮೇಡಮ್. ಏನ್ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಈಗ? I said, you don't understand, that's my greatest compliment, because I don't want to be that old Padmini Ravi who is So that avatar is over. Now since I'm researching and I know after my interaction, the interaction with Dr. Padma Subramaniam or Ganesh or even Saroj Khan, I know that the heart of Natya Shastra is only in films right now. I have never bothered about fitting in. I never bothered about whether I get a performance, whether somebody will, oh, I have to do this. Never, never. Not then, not now.
That brings me to another interesting question. Now that you were always associated with films and movies and you used to choreograph along with your teacher, were you ever fascinated to try your luck in films?
Well, there were lots of opportunities for me to join, but I was never that kind of a person. I would have never, because see, in any, whether it is dance or whether it is more so in films, you will have to conform to yourself to a system, you know. Film, you have to go and suck up to the director, to the producer, I don't know, whatever it is. எனக்கு அந்த மாதிரி I can't. I have never gone. I come from a very academically inclined family. My father, my mother's father, my grandfather, they were all neurosurgeons. The complete family is full of doctors. And my father's brother and his children, all of them, we are big family of doctors. So I was the only person who was an artist, who am an artist in my entire family. So somewhere I think that academic background brought me to be a very reserved, I'm not that regular person who will go out there. I'm not saying, I'm not judging, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, good or bad, but I'm just not that kind of a person. Even when I was in Bangalore and even when I was one of the few dancers, I never used to go and ask for any of the performances, though I knew everybody as a friend. I will never go and ask for a performance. So I'm not made like that. So I would have been a total misfit in a film field. Though now my interest in films is not films per se. Of course, I am a movie buff. I love to watch films, but my interest in films or film choreography is only to explore the extent of possibilities in our classical medium, in our milieu. That is my only interest. Of course, at some point of time, I would love to make a lovely film, good enough to win an Oscar, but never act in a film. No, yeah.
That brings us to, I definitely want to ask about Shringaram, the movie that you were a part of, you produced and directed with amazing dancers and so much of dancing happened. I have definitely seen a couple of visuals. So can you please elaborate on that?
Shringaram was landed in my lap as an accident. Actually, the film was supposed to be produced by somebody else, and they backed out at the last minute. And the director was a very dear friend of mine, is a very dear friend of mine, Sharada. So she asked me, look, do you want to do that? Because it was a Ford Foundation project, and only a trust could be a producer. So she said, would you like to, as a part of the trust, Pradhan Dance Center was a trust. So she said, would you like to do it? I said, yeah, sure. So we received a grant, but it was a total mess because it was a first time production for me. It was a first time direction for my friend, and everything went haywire. But what I learned, what was the best thing was, we worked with the industry stalwarts. We worked with Madhu Ambat on camera. We worked with Lalgudi Mama for the music and Saroj Khan for dance. And, so it was a lovely, lovely experience. And though it was financially a financial disaster, the film, but it was a very, very good experience. And, every experience like this, I only take it as a step forward and towards my ultimate goal, which I don't know what it is right now, but I am only looking for a deeper connect with my dance, and I want to do it. And I also want to pass on. When I pass on something, I don't want to pass on a very rigid, dogmatic point of view about dance, because that is something that I've never appreciated, and I've never agreed on that. So there has to be a little bit of open mind, and every such experience only opened my mind to that much, uh, to acknowledge that there are other possibilities as well, which, and not being judgmental or too opinionated. Yeah. So it was a very good experience, Sringara.
How did you foray into the international front with your wonderful conceptual Bangalore Hubba? That the name international, the Bangalore was suddenly, it was witnessed on a global platform. It was seen as a bigger entertainment zone, or probably so many art people performed and all. Elaborate on that, please.
In fact, those were the years when I was completely not dancing, and so I was not performing, I was not teaching, but I was just dancing for my sake. And then I wanted to create some platform so that the other dancers could have interactive sessions. So we, the sense, me and Nandini Alva, we were good friends, and we are good friends, and so we said, okay, why don't we start an organization where can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
And so we said, okay, why don't we just start an organization so we can help other artists, number one. Number two, expose the city of Bangalore, because Bangalore was so IT and so cosmopolitan. Like Chennai and Delhi and Bombay, they all had their own stuff with which they culturally identified themselves. But Bangalore was a very nebulous kind of place. So we said, okay, let's give something back to the society, so that everybody can say, okay, this is my Hubba, this is my. So that's how we started, and we based it, we designed it on the lines of Singapore Arts Festival, and so that everybody, in every part of the city have something in their own area, so that we can do that. We did it for 12 years, and it was a mega concept, because I think it was way too ahead of its time. And I mean, as long as it ran, it was a success. But unfortunately, we wanted the government to take it up and run it. But unfortunately, that couldn't happen. And over the years, the sponsors were looking for more of the popular element than the classical element. So when we started, 80% was classical and 20% was commercial, popular. But as years towards the last few years, it was 80% popular and 20% classical. They used to say, no, nobody is coming, and to watch a performance, cut the classical bit, and we didn't see any sense. Why should I run around, beg and borrow from other people to pay a Sonu Nigam or a, or a Malaika, or that's not why. We are not event managers. No, we are an arts organization. So we decided, okay, the shelf life is over. So, like Vasanta Happa, like, I don't know if Ranga Shankara, from 1 week, I think they come for one, I don't know. These festivals are very difficult to sustain, we can do it, but we still sustain for about 10 years, 11 years we sustain. But it was again, one of the main lessons that I learned is, though we all think that we are God's gift to mankind, and we are the celebrated performers, on the other side of the table, we are so irrelevant. They don't know who is who, who's doing what. In fact, one of the sponsors said, so Dr. Balamurli Krishna, what does he play? And so I said, on a lighter note, I said he plays cricket. So they are that ignorant, they don't know who was doing what. So, it was a very, very great learning for me, because I thought, that we are the same as Bharatnatyam dancers, and on the other side of the table, they have no idea what's happening in the cultural field whatsoever. They used to only provide us with whatever little that they provided with, but they never used to come and see any performance. They used to come and they said, just please come and watch a performance. Nobody had the time. So it was a great learning, that we are at the end of the day quite irrelevant in the whole scheme of things. But somehow we created that buzz, and then the timing was right. Nothing else was happening in Bangalore, and we had a very proactive chief minister then, Mr. S.M. Krishna. So all things came together well. It worked for a few 10 years, but then after that it didn't work. So one thing that I've decided, which I've always decided in my life, is never to attach to anything, never to push anything. As long as it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it's not meant to happen. That way, I'm quite philosophical and spiritual. Even with my dance, I've never said, oh my God, I mean, she's doing this and he's doing this, I'm not doing this. I've never been that person. I'm quite attached to my dance, but detached to what I get out of it. So that way I'm in a very peaceful space with my dance. Yeah.
The olden times, dancers were just dancing, rehearsing, practicing, dancing, and they would just probably, each performance would probably stay on in people's mind for a long, long time. Unlike today's performance, where the dancer needs to be tech savvy, the dancer needs to be active, the dancer needs to be, talking so much, the dancer needs to be seen. What do you have to say about this?
Can you repeat the question, because you are breaking all through?
The olden days, probably, I wouldn't say your times, much before or after, dancers just danced. They never bothered about the publicity, impresarios, or talking about pre-publicity, post-publicity, promo videos, or post-show videos.
Social media
was not there. But then what bothered was review and something like that. That's it. But today's life, every Friday you're born, every Friday there is a new artist in the arena. And you need to do so much. Jungle mein more nacha kisne dekha. This is the logic most artists are using. Whether you're selling soaps to shampoos to dance to music, whatever. If you want people to witness you, you need to be seen, and that scene is everywhere. That is what is happening. What do you have to say about this?
See, the thing is, I believe that things have not changed, because you're right in one sense, because those days the number of people who were dancing or are performing were very, very few. Okay, but what is happening today is the numbers have increased, and so the dancer has to compete. We were 1 in 10. Now you guys are 1 in 10,000. So it makes a lot of difference. So you have to push to that extent, and which means that you have to do other things more than you focus on your dance. Not you, but everybody else. You don't have time. I mean, you'll have to go and look for a performance. You have to look for a sponsor. If you're doing a group production, you will have to accommodate the kids, and then you will have to do your branding, and it's a headache. And so that is why I'm saying, I mean, everywhere, even when Sama or the greats were singing and dancing, there were not many people, so they could only dance. But here today there are so many people. And like, for example, look at this COVID, this last 5-6 months. At least if you have a performance in Seva Sadan or Kala Mandir in Mysore, whatever, you will get some 50, 75, 100 audiences you will get. But at least you will know who has come and who has not come. Even if it is a few people, you will get it. But now on the internet, like how many, I mean, there are hundreds of shows every day, hundreds of interviews every day. Now you have, when I say something on Facebook, I have, wow, so good, and all these emojis will come. But are they really engaging in what I'm saying? Or are they really watching a performance? Like there are five, I know on Wednesdays between 7 and 8 there are 5 different people doing 5 different things. So now I go at one show, I see 1 minute, and then I flip to the next show, and then I flip to the, and in all of this I'm having it in my mobile, and I'm watching a movie. So you're not actually seeing anything. So things have come to this. I don't know. I'm not saying it's bad or sad or good, or I'm not judging it, but it's a cycle. It is a journey that dance has to go through, and it will go through, and then it'll flow and ebb and reach a space where everybody has to do what they are supposed to do. Because today, Karthalende, you have to brush your teeth and do some posting in social media. Otherwise, you're not considered. If you are sitting there and studying or reading, or no, you're not doing anything on Instagram or Facebook, they all think that you're out of a job. No, that's not point. And so every day, like the social media consultants are saying that you have to do some 10 postings a day. I said, what will I say? I mean, I'm not going to say, oh, I'm looking at the mirror. Oh, I'm eating rasagolla. I can't say all of that. No, I have to just say something which is of value. But what do you do? What do you say? How many pictures can you take? How many dance poses can you do? How many videos can you do? And for what? Who's watching it? And what are they getting from it? That's the most important. If I say something, it should make a difference. If the listener is at least, oh, okay, she has a point of view. Apdiyanana, you should have something. But it's all madness. But that's what it is. So we have to just be a part of that and just observe and say, okay, this is also happening, and yeah, that's it.
Do you think dance has to be taken up academically, Auntie?
Well, there are now universities and organizations, institutions like Kalakshetra, Nalanda, our own performing arts institutions are doing it. But the point is, what is academics is what we have to define, because dance was has been never systematized, because according to me, Indian dance, any classical form, is a very individual interpretation, especially from our country. So it cannot be codified, and it cannot be said, okay, ippadidan pannanam. No, this is the way it has to be done. You cannot do that, because it has never come to us like that. And when we learn from my teacher and all of them, they didn't teach us any theory, nothing, Griva Veda, Mudra, Gidra, onnum kadayadu. We didn't listen, they didn't tell us anything. But that doesn't mean that we were not good dancers. They knew a certain way of transmitting knowledge, oral way of transmitting knowledge, and that's how we got it. And today it is become academic only from the sense that when you learn dance, people want a certificate, a tangible. So now what they do with the certificate, I have no idea. But they want to have a certificate saying, I learned dance. Okay, you can get it. But what do you learn as theory is what very important, because in my opinion, the current syllabus is a redundant and a very decadent syllabus. We'll have to go. It is not evolved from the time it was formulated by Kalakshetra, and I think we always kind of have the same format. And but instead of academics, I believe that there must be more encouragement towards research. I mean, of course, we don't do any research in even other subjects, but people should engage into more research, dive into the depths, and really figure out what is right, what is wrong, what is there, because we are only seeing what is in the surface. So adaleye நம்ம போட்டு உருட்டின்னு இருக்கோம். But you must when I say academics, yeah, many people are doing it and you can give certificates. But first, what are they learning? What are they teaching? In that sense, I think research should be more valued and more promoted, I think, in my opinion.
You have been teaching since decades. What is the difference that you see with the students from the past to students of today? The methodology of teaching has changed, or the students who are seeking knowledge, have they changed the acceptance? Has the acceptance changed so that even the teachers are bound or forced to teach in a certain way? What is your take on that?
Today, I think what the generations, of course, I should acknowledge that I haven't been teaching like that in the last 10, 15 years because I stopped regular classes. So I really wouldn't know what the thing is. But the little workshops and when I go abroad, when I teach, two things that are very different now. One are the very aggressive and very ambitious parents of the students who are living either their dream or they are in a competitive mode saying that the children have to be in the forefront. Number two, they have no patience. They want everything is instant gratification. Inninga dance panna, tomorrow you have to become Shiva or Padma Subramaniam. They have no this thing. And thirdly, they are very externally stimulated. Avanga vandu thatti kumtavana, they'll have to buy a dance dress, costume, talisaman. So for them, that's very important. The end goal is very important more than the journey. And like, for example, you go to Coursera or Udemy or anything, you have courses, lives, data analysis. You have 10 hours for 500 rupees. I don't know what they learn, but then they are offering courses. So they are looking at quick fixes, but dance cannot be done like that. So fortunately, I'm at a place where I say, this is how I teach. And this is what I will teach. If you want to learn, you can learn. If you don't want to learn, you can go elsewhere. So I'm in a position to say that. But I'm not sure how many people, because I'm not blaming anybody, because it's all at the end of the day, it's our profession. It's but bread and butter. So we have to earn a living, we have to look after ourselves, and we have to promote ourselves, and we have to put our own money and do production. So you need the money, of course. But fortunately or unfortunately, I don't think like that. So if you don't want to learn, fine, no problem. So, but I'm very clear what I want to teach, to whom I want to teach, and how I want to teach. So I've always stuck with that then and even now. I've completed 40 years of teaching, and never once I have compromised. Not compromised. I've never once got forced or bullied into teaching something because the parent or the student wants it. Never. I don't think it's necessary.
Any funny incident or anything, any anecdote that you remember? I'm sure so many would have passed by, but then some incidents stay on and you laugh at it whenever you think, probably when you're not dancing, when you're probably listening or having a sip of coffee or in the kitchen. Can you share some lighter moments like that?
When I was when I was fat, and we had Pradhan Dance Center was a very busy school, lots of performances. So once we went to this Kannada culture, they used to give lots of performances, and we used to travel a lot. So we went to some place, and then it was one of the Ganapati festival or something like that. So they had large pandal, and then on a big stage, and we all went there, wearing Bharatnatyam costume, and we all performing Pushpanjali, Alari Pujatiswaram. And so this man, this organizer, one of the organizers of the local organizers, he came running inside and he said, "Madam, onde disco number martira." அப்படின்னா நான் சொன்னேன் you know, like number one, look at my figure. I was nice and fat and plumpy, and then we are all there with Bharatnatyam costume, so he wanted me to dance at disco. Anyway, so that was one thing. And many of these things, you know, we used to dance in bus stops, in the middle of the junction, you know, like I don't even remember those little towns, you know, they'll put this thing, and then in the middle of the night, we'll start the performance at 11 o'clock and go on till 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. I mean, all kinds of, I wouldn't say funny, it was so important for us and all my students, because that was the spirit of dance. Because now to go into a very large auditorium where it's all light, lit and backdrops and technical, you know, extravaganza, versus what we used to do then in the bus stop, you know, wooden stages, there will be 1-2 halogen lamps and then lots of insects flying, because, you know, in the middle of you're middle of nowhere. And, you know, there won't be, but there'll be 2 mics and there'll be 5 musicians, you know, each one sharing mics. So it was a very simple, but it was necessary experience for people. For when you grow up as a dancer or a teacher. I just feel sad that none of those experiences, I don't know if there are any more performances like that happening in the state or the city, I'm not too sure. But it is very sad that people don't have such rugged experiences. I think that is when you learn, not when everything is comfortable and everything is going as scheduled, you don't learn anything. And these are the things that makes you think and makes you learn. And I should, even whether it was with Sarasa or with my own experience, I've had some of the best experiences like this.
At this juncture, I would want to, it reminds me of an incident. When me and Anjana, the first times when we were dancing in Chennai. You know, Chennai, you will feel so elevated and you will be like, oh my God, I'm dancing in Chennai. Though we would have been dancing around the world, but in Chennai is something different, a very prominent sabha. We do a concept where we enter behind the curtain. We hold that thing and we do Gajavadana Karma, Pushpanjali, but then we enter. So now when we are ready, we are all, and we have Gopika Verma in the audience, we have Dhananjay in the audience, so many well-versed. It's a small auditorium, but with very learned people. Now, when the CD, we gave the CD to the person who was running it, right after I announced, and he said he was not to be seen, because we always make sure. CD kuduthorniyama, enge podnu ketta. I said, flabbergasted. I said, what are you saying? CD da kuduthirke. I mean, CD போடுறது CD drive போடுங்க. அரே நீங்க கொண்டு வந்தேடா. I've given all the build up, you know. We are dancing. This is Badari Divya Bhushan and Anjana Bhushan presenting Pushpanjali. அதெல்லாம் சொல்லியாச்சு எல்லாம் ஆச்சு. நான் எப்படி சொல்றானே? You didn't tell me. உங்களுக்கு தெரியாதா? இந்த ஆடிட்டோரியம்ல பிளேயரே கிடையாதுன்னு சொன்னா. I don't know. Should I cry? Should I be angry? Or should I be composed and say nothing happened? Then I said, எங்கயாவது கொண்டு வாப்பா. 400 rupees கொடுங்க. I said, கொடுக்கிறேன், but then you get the CD. இல்ல. Then again, it was, I said, I apologize for the technical snag. Then சொல்லி pull பண்ணியாச்சு. He comes back with one player. And that's a cassette player.
Oh God.
It's a very well popular sabha. Let me tell you this. And this was not expected that I didn't expect this. And we are like, you know, pani, you know, we don't know, we are killing time. This never happens. And there's a lot of expectation. Luckily, I had a cassette. But that cassette is like an analog part in the voice. You know, that's how the sound will come if it's played in the cassette like that, not like the cassette. So then I said, okay, they podlaanu potta. I am concentrating too much, then I can see. It was P. Rama's voice. I can hear Rama singing from the door. Rama from the door, and only the from the side wing. And Rhythm Ingyo audience in Ingyo Varuthu. And it was, I had such tough time we had, and that was today when we think of it, we laugh, but at that point of time,
Laugh.
it,
Oh yeah.
it was worse than the disco. It was literally disco.
The disco, but you know,
Like Sunday,
And
no, I said those are the experiences that you know you learn through that.
what is it, that one thing that drives you every morning?
Well, right now I've registered for my PhD, and I am in Jain University. Something that I want to be, I wanted to do for for a long time, but I just didn't have the time. Now I have some time and I really want to do it. So I get up in the morning, I do my exercises, and I read and I listen and I write. So that is something that I really enjoy doing it. So, that's what I look forward right now. And yeah, I think professionally and personally, of course, I just have fun with my.
It's been my dream to sing for you, and of course, you teaching something where Anjana does. Would you be glad enough to teach us something? So, Parulanna Mata,
What do you want to?
for Javanese and things. So I thought probably that. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
Parulanna Mata, Nambudu Prananayaka, Parulanna Mata, Nambudu Prananayaka, Parulanna Mata, Nambudu Prananayaka, Parulanna Mata, Nambudu Prananayaka, Parulanna Mata, Nambudu Prananayaka.
do you think dancers should have elaborate costumes, makeup?
See, dance costume Indian vandhudu. I mean, we all you said Devadasi system allam pochu adellam panniyachu, but we are still following that system of dressing. But ava vandu, that was the way they used to dress every day. If my grandmother was there, and every day she'll wear a odyanam, because that's how they were dressing, you know. Even otherwise, they were not wearing a salwar or trousers at home, and then suddenly move back 200 years on stage. So for me, that is something which is very false, you know. So I don't have to see. I have short hair, and I like my short hair, but then I can't go. I mean, if I'm dancing a period, like for example, Jodha Akbar, அப்படின்னா வந்து அதுக்கு சரியா we'll have to dress the characters and the sets and all that. So the problem with not as a problem, the challenge with Bharatanatyam is when we are taking the songs that were sung or that depicted a lifestyle of 200-300 years back, you need to wear a certain type of dress and you have to be a thing. But இன்னைக்கு வந்து it is not about fitting the dance performance, it's about show off. You know, I've seen or Bharatanatyam performance, like there are 8 items, they change 8 times with 8 sets of dresses and elaborate costumes, which is not necessary. I mean, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. If people want to spend that much of money, it's their problem, it's not my problem. But the thing is, you don't need to do it. Of course, you have to. I can't wear Now I'm being very modern. I can't wear a shirt and pant and dance paralana mata. See, you know what I mean? So there has to be a type of this thing. But I don't agree with something like if you're a dancer on stage, then off stage you have to dress like a dancer or dress like there is a certain look that you want to project. I don't believe in that. I just want to be a normal person because that's who I am, and I don't want to be. I don't want to be. I want to be. I'm an honest person in terms of. I like to maintain I would like to maintain honesty to my being in my dance on stage and off stage. So I don't. I don't. I don't agree to that, but uh, it's each one's choice. Yeah, it's each one's choice.
Auntie, you've seen it all, been there, done that. What is your piece of advice for today's dancers, today's aspiring students who want to pursue dance as a career? And of course, dance, as most of them say it is passion and they come to profession. What is it that your piece of advice for them?
See, in any profession, whether it's a lawyer or whether it's a doctor or whether it's an engineer, uh, there is something called quality, you know. So people have to be conscious of that. You can't be a substandard doctor and go and operate, then the patient will die. You can't be a substandard mediocre engineer and you will mess up the software program. Adamari, dancers must able to identify what is good and what is bad. அவங்க நம்ம தப்பா பண்ணா நம்ம தப்பா பண்றோம் பண்ணக்கூடாது, we should correct ourselves அப்படின்னு ஒரு கான்சியஸ் அவேர்னஸ் இருக்கும் இருக்கணும். And other than that, it is just that you can't say, oh, I have to learn dance, I have to dance because I have to go on stage, because I have to be seen, or I have to be I have to do something on social media. Adha mari illada, you can't be peripheral, you can't learn dance on the surface level. They should engage time and effort to understand. I mean, the dancers are dancing. I mean, I can see my own students dancing. Music is somewhere, they are somewhere, so they can't even relate to the fact that dance has to be with the music, So whether it is little things, you don't have to learn music, but then you'll have to appreciate music. You have to go and see others perform and not be judgmental about it. And you'll have to read, you'll have to imagine, you'll have to do all kinds of things. And I always tell my students, for a dancer, learning dance as a technique is the last thing that you have to do. There are so many other things. You have to read philosophy, you have to read poetry, you have to listen to music. You'll have to open your mind first and not be rigid and dogmatic in your views and say, I will do only this because only this is right. It's not true. So they have to open their minds. So that is what I wish the younger generation should do. And they should always have the discipline, the sadhana, the practice, and honesty, sincerity, commitment. So இதெல்லாம் இருந்ததுன்னா ஓரளவுக்கு we can, the younger generation can take it to the next level, because we are all going to go off in another 20-30 years, we'll all be dead and gone. And so the next generation has to take that responsibility. It is not a show. I mean, of course it's a showbiz, but it's not that much of a showbiz, it's a responsibility. Like especially students like you, but teaching so many, you have to imbibe that philosophy in your students, and that is going to be a challenge nowadays. So I hope that there will be students who will take the commitment and the sincerity to work hard and know better. Yeah.
Thank you, Auntie. It's been wonderful, and you've been a wonderful person consenting to be a part of the show. And thank you for bearing through the tortures that I've been calling and pursuing pick up the show.
No problem. No problem. No
Thank you
problem.
for
I
amazing
wish you all and Bhushan, and I hope you have a pleasant and a very peaceful life in dance and otherwise.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you
a
so
lot.
much.